You can't sit still. Stop fidgeting. Pay attention. Those were the complaints, so someone handed it a name, a disorder. But nobody stopped to ask why a brain would work that way. Nobody asked what it was built for. Because here's what the diagnosis doesn't tell you. The traits on that list, the restlessness, the impulsivity, the inability to focus on one thing for very long, those aren't new. They're ancient. And for most of human history, the people who had them weren't the ones falling behind. They were the ones who kept everyone else alive. This is that story. Let's go back 70,000 years. A small group is moving across unfamiliar land. Most of them are tired. Most of them want to stop, set up camp, stay where it's safe. But one person can't stop scanning the horizon. Can't stop noticing the smell carried on the wind from somewhere new. Can't sit still long enough to finish the meal before they're already looking at the next ridge, the next river, the next unknown. Everyone else finds this exhausting. That person finds stillness unbearable. And that difference, that restlessness that looks like a flaw up close, is the reason the group is standing in this valley at all, instead of the last one, the one that ran out of food 3 seasons ago. Anthropologists have a name for this now, the novelty-seeking phenotype. In 1996, a researcher named Robert Moises identified a specific gene variant called DRD47R, linked directly to novelty-seeking behavior, impulsivity, and exactly the symptom profile we now diagnose as ADHD. And here's what should stop you. That variant isn't rare. It's found in roughly 20% of the human population, and it shows up at significantly higher frequencies in populations with a history of migration. Groups that moved the farthest, fastest, into the most unfamiliar territory carry this gene at higher rates than groups that stayed put. That's not random, that's selection. Evolution kept this trait on purpose, repeatedly, across continents, because the people who had it kept finding what everyone else missed. Think about what that actually means. The trait now flagged in a 6-year-old's behavior report was once the exact reason a tribe found new hunting grounds before starvation found them first. But movement is only half of it. In 2008, researchers studying hunter-gatherer foraging patterns noticed something strange. When you model how humans search for food across a landscape, the most efficient pattern isn't a careful, methodical grid. It's something mathematicians call a Levy flight. Short, intense bursts of focused searching in one spot, followed by a sudden, almost erratic jump to somewhere completely different. Most predators that hunt this way are remarkably successful. Sharks do it. Albatrosses do it. And in 2014, a study comparing the search behavior of people with ADHD to people without found that ADHD brains naturally default to something very close to this exact pattern. Quick, intense focus. Sudden shift. Quick, intense focus somewhere new. What looks like an attention span problem in a classroom is, in an open landscape full of scattered, unpredictable resources, close to the optimal strategy for finding food. The brain wasn't broken. It was built for a world made of patches, not pages. Here's where it gets stranger. In 2017, a paper in the Journal of Attention Disorders proposed something researchers call the mismatch hypothesis. The argument is simple and a little brutal. ADHD isn't a deficit at all. It's a hunter brain trying to operate inside a farmer's world. For roughly 290,000 years, the human brain evolved for an environment that rewarded constant vigilance, rapid shifts in attention, and decisive action on incomplete information. You didn't have the luxury of sitting at a desk analyzing a threat for 45 minutes. You noticed movement in the grass, you reacted, you moved on. That brain is still here. It's just been dropped into rows of desks, fluorescent lighting, and 6-hour blocks of sitting still and listening to one voice talk about one subject. The traits didn't change. The world did. There's an obvious objection here. If this trait was so valuable, why does it come with the chaos? The lost keys, the unfinished projects, the impulsive decisions that blow up relationships and bank accounts? This is the right question, and the answer is the uncomfortable part. It wasn't a flaw in the design. It was the design. A tribe was never one kind of mind. It never could be. What made early human groups so effective wasn't that everyone thought the same way. It was that they didn't. Anthropologists studying surviving hunter-gatherer societies describe something close to a division of cognitive labor. If the methodical, detail-obsessed mind was the engineer, the one who perfected the blade, mapped the stars, refined the same task for hours without losing focus, then the novelty-seeking mind was the scout, restless, impulsive, first over the next hill, first to notice the herd had changed direction, First to abandon a failing strategy the moment it stopped working, while everyone else was still committed to the plan. A tribe of only engineers never adapts fast enough when the world shifts under them. A tribe of only scouts never finishes anything they start. You needed both. The impulsivity that gets a person fired today is the same trait that, 50,000 years ago, made someone abandon a dry riverbed 3 days before everyone else realized the water wasn't coming back. For most of human history, the tribe absorbed the chaos because the payoff was visible, immediate, and occasionally life-saving. And then, roughly 10,000 years ago, we stopped moving. Agriculture, settlements, eventually offices, classrooms, calendars, deadlines. Environments built entirely around sustained, narrow, repetitive attention to a single task chosen by someone else. Environments where the scout's gift became invisible and the scout's cost became disqualifying. Here's the part that should sit with you. The genes didn't disappear. In 2019, a large genomic study found that the variants associated with ADHD have remained in the human population at remarkably stable frequencies for tens of thousands of years. Evolution had every opportunity to remove them. It didn't, which means, with some precision, that the trade-off was always considered worth making. The genome kept the receipt. Go back to that person scanning the horizon while everyone else wants to rest. That mind is still here. It's in classrooms right now, being told to focus on a worksheet less interesting than literally anything else in the room. It's in open-plan offices, restless by 10 a.m., doing in 40 minutes of frantic, brilliant effort what takes someone else all day, then losing the thread completely an hour later. It's sitting across from a doctor, hearing a list of deficits, with no idea that every item on that list has a 70,000-year-old counterpart that once led a starving group of people directly to the next river. This doesn't make the daily reality easy. The missed deadlines are real. The frustration, for the person living it and the people loving them through it, is real. But there's a difference between a trait that's hard to live with now and a trait that was always wrong. This mind was never wrong. It was always just built for a different map. The tribes that figured out how to use it built the world anyway. That's the whole story, really. Sources are in the description. If this one landed for you, leave a like. It genuinely helps more people find this video. Subscribe to Science, where complicated things get explained simply.